It's the Brad and John Show.
It is the Brad and John Show. Today's date is June 20th. And this is the B block, which means it's time for Brad's Top 3. You sure this isn't like, heroin day or something like that?
Yeah, I don't think so. Although there's a great website called lewinfo.com. And every day they go through, when they give like kind of the morning briefing, they say what special days it is. And if there's like a special occasion for the day. I haven't gone to lewinfo.com yet today, but I'll go there right now.
John,
if there's a wacky day that today is, we will, I'll tell you, Brad.
We are such an unusual radio station because
And why is that, Brad?
In the first 26 minutes of this station, or this show, we've given a plug to KYRO, who is...
a great station, by the way.
Who I believe is owned, I don't know if he's officially bought it, by John Shepard, who if I were on fire, he wouldn't cross the street to piss on me. Matter of fact, if I were on fire, he'd find a gas can to put more gas on me. But
can we say piss on this station, Brad?
I just did.
Okay, there you go.
And then,
when you're done with your rant about how we're so unusual and unique, I have the special days that today is, by the way.
And then John mentions the Dave Green station, which, the jury's still out for me. I mean, you go to that website, I'll be honest with you, I find the website sort of clunky.
Oh, because they don't have a bunch of Latin text that they're so lazy that they don't go in and fix?
Well, for example, there's certain things I go on there, and when you go halfway down the page, the story just ends like halfway, like part of the sentence is cut off, and the rest of the story isn't there. It's like, okay, I don't get this.
This is coming from a guy that told me to go to Westplex News, and I have a Nexus landing page.
John, I shouldn't have said that.
Also, Brad, don't forget, you did plug Tracy and Rick Ellis because of your obsession with them. Here are the special days today, Brad. The national days today are National Seashell. Let me try this again. National Seashell Day, and the first day of summer. I guess it's officially the summer. What would be summer solstice? Today is Take Your Dog to Work Day, where Brad looks in the mirror and says "rough, rough," and it's National Ice Cream Soda Day, where people like Brad Hildebrand, who somehow drinks soda in 2025, can sit in their car and put a little ice cream in there and have panhandlers come by.
Take Your Dog to Work Day?
Yeah, and that celebrated the Friday after Father's Day. This holiday encourages pet lovers to bring their pups to work and promote shelter adoptions. Anyway, you can find this every weekday. If you go to lewinfo.com, there's a young man over there whose name is Connor Green, and he puts together like a daily briefing. There's live music and performances, events going on, sports, and what's new in what they call Lou News. You also get a weather report. You don't have to go to omoweather.com instead of, opening up your weather browser or your weather app. You can just go to lewinfo.com and see the region's weather.
John, a question for you. Do you have pets?
I do not.
Okay. Is that a conscious decision, or is just the point where like you think, maybe I should get one someday?
No, I don't do things like say, oh, maybe I'll just finish this project someday. Yeah, of course it's a conscious decision.
Okay, so when you grew up, did you have pets in your house?
Yeah, I always had. We pretty much every year, we always had a dog, or almost every year, I should say, growing up, we had a dog.
Okay. I will rest my case. Won't say anything more. Okay, you know what? It's time for
Brad's Top 3.
Yes! Ladies, you have to say it one more time. Let me hear you sing it.
It's time for Brad's Top 3.
Yes! Brad's Top 3. Okay, are we ready for number 3, John?
I'm ready.
It's number 3.
It is number 3. In the 3 spot, Charlie Kirk and the MRS degree, if you heard this story.
No, I heard him appropriately mock Juneteenth yesterday, but I haven't heard about is this where he says I'm guessing he's saying that most women go to college to get their MRS degree?
Let me read the first paragraph of this story. MAGA influencer Charlie Kirk said women should only go to college to find a husband, stirring outrage from critics who lambasted the outspoken political activist. Over the weekend, Kirk took questions at a Turning Point USA sponsored event in Dallas, Texas, where a 14-year-old girl asked for his advice on attending college and the pros and cons of higher education. After the girl mentioned that she was interested in pursuing pursuing a career in political journalism, Kirk asked all the young girls in the audience to raise their hand if their top priority is to get married and have kids. Many of them.
And what was the outcome? I bet a lot of, if the women were honest, they probably raised their hand, right?
Says many of them did raise their hands, including the girl who asked the question. Interesting, I think there's an argument, this is what he said. Interesting, I think there's an argument to bring back the MRS degree, he said, referencing the slang term for women who go to college solely to find a husband. My mother attended Washington University, the same university you went to. I believe she was there in the late 40s and early 50s. I believe she graduated in 51 or 52. And my mom, who was a very determined, educator, special ed, she worked at St. Louis Central Institute for the Deaf, and she was a speech pathologist. She made fun of her fellow female college students who were there for her MRS degree. She was there to get her degree, not to find a husband, which ironically she did, my father, but that's a whole nother story. And she didn't actually find him on campus. She found him on a streetcar back in the days. Am I dating myself or what? Okay, so my mom used to talk about this all the time.
I thought you said she found him on Tinder.
No. My mom used to talk about this all the time.
Go ahead.
That there were girlfriends of hers who, when she would tell me, I go, where do you know her? Well, I went to college with her, but she didn't graduate. My mom would always say that. I go, why didn't she graduate? Well, she was there for her MRS degree, and she got it. When the first time she said it, I was a kid. I go, what's an MRS degree? Son, when you get married, you're Mrs. MRS. So Charlie Kirk essentially is saying that now, the interesting part of this is that the college attendance statistics, depending upon the university, almost all of them, I think the national average is like 59% women and 41% men. I think that's the national average. I read that about 6 months or so ago. Some colleges, they claim, are like 70-30, with 70% of the college students there being women and 30% being men. So, and you know why that is, John?
Why is that, Brad?
Because the men are too busy sitting in their basement playing video games. That's why they're still in their mom's.
Often. I think that's probably often true, right?
They're still in their mom's basement. Okay, number 2. You ready for this one, John?
Yeah, I sure am.
And of course,
It's time for Brad's number 2.
we can't just say it once. We have to say it twice.
It's time for Brad's number 2.
Yes. Michael Proctor. Do you know that name? Chances are you don't, unless you're a real nerd into the Karen Reed trial. Do you know Michael?
No, I don't know who Karen Reed is.
You don't know who you haven't followed the Karen Reed trial?
I've never heard of Karen Reed. Who is Karen Reed?
This is a huge story, John. Karen
Can
Reed.
you exhale disapprovingly one more time, Brad? There we go.
That's about
now
4
that
times.
sounds like you're calling one of your 1-900 numbers. Go ahead. Who is Karen Reed?
Karen Reed is a woman, I believe, in her early 40s when this happened. Karen Reed was dating a Boston police officer. She lives in Boston, and she's apparently sort of well off, drives a nice car, at least she did.
Then she's definitely well off then. Okay, so what's her deal?
She was a professor at some university up there. Then she left to become like a financial advisor for one of the big companies. Her and her boyfriend, who is a Boston cop, were out carousing around with a bunch of his cop friends one night, bar hopping. And when they went, they had a little fight in the car, and he had a little bit too much to drink, and she had a little bit too much to drink. And she dropped him off at a friend's house, of another cop friends of hers. And you find out in the trial, the reason she didn't want to go in, I got to clear my voice, hold on a minute. The reason she didn't want to go in was that she was also having a texting affair with one of his cop buddies. In other words, she's got...
so that would have been super awkward. Like 2 cops arguing over a chick?
Right. So she drops him off, and this is in Boston in the winter. She drops him off in front of this other cop's house, and allegedly, this is what the prosecutors say, she got mad, threw her car in reverse, backed into him, whacked him good with her car, knocked him out, and she didn't even realize this, but he was unconscious, and he lay on the front lawn, and then all night it snowed, and then the next morning they found him dead. Okay. And it's a very complicated trial. I mean, and matter of fact, this is interesting because this is the second trial. To give you an idea, I'm surprised you didn't even see this. They broke in on Fox News. Matter of fact, the top of the hour, I think it was Wednesday, the top of the hour newscast was, they have the dong Fox News bulletin, Karen Reed, and essentially she was charged with second-degree murder, all these other kind of stuff. This is the second trial. The first trial ended in a hung jury. Second trial, she didn't get. She got acquitted of all the big charges, but she did get convicted of drunk driving. Okay, the reason I mentioned Michael Proctor is Michael Proctor was a state police investigator. It gets complicated because this was in a small suburb outside of Boston, and apparently not a very sophisticated suburb as far as crime control is concerned, crime investigation, stuff like that. So the state police were brought in, and this Michael Proctor was the investigator. So the interesting thing was, after you watch this trial, you will be very careful of what you ever put into your phone, because the defense and the prosecution both subpoenaed everybody's phone's records. And they've got all the phone calls, they've got all the voice messages, and they use these in trial. They've got all the texts. And how it got sticky was Michael Proctor was, I assume, using his state-issued cell phone, because he's a state trooper for Massachusetts. He was texting his friends talking about the investigation. And what he was doing was, he was sending derogatory texts regarding the suspect, Karen Reed, in addition to sharing sensitive or confidential information. And also, he called Reed, 1, a whack job, 2, a babe with no A, put 2 S's after that.
Oh, yeah.
And a C word. So Michael Proctor got fired from the state police. And in the second trial, they brought this up, that this was an example of how, because the defense's case was that it wasn't Karen Reed that backed into her boyfriend and whacked him and knocked him out and then he froze to death on front lawn. It was his buddies at the police department who came out and beat the snot out of him because of the fact that he was essentially messing with, that they were jealous of him because he had Karen, but he didn't have Karen because she was texting one of the other dudes. It gets so complicated. But
yeah, that seems strange that the other cops would beat him up because of that.
Well, the whole case is it's really sort of a fascinating case. Now, the interesting third part of this is, you're going to laugh when I say this, and I heard the interview yesterday. There was this guy who becomes a central figure in the case, not directly involved with it, but his name was, this is the name he assumed, Turtle Boy. Don't ask me why he called himself Turtle Boy, but he calls himself Turtle Boy. And he was blogging all this stuff. He was blogging all this positive through the entire case, and he became like a huge celebrity. Every day at the courthouse where this court case was going on, there were literally thousands of people there, women, and mainly women from all over the country came to this trial. And the interview that caught my attention was when someone was interviewing him, they called him a blogger, and he got mad and looked at them and they said, "I'm not a blogger, I'm a journalist." I thought to myself, dude, once again, another reason why I have 2 worthless journalism degrees.
Yeah, he should take blogger as a compliment. Hey, Brad, it would be kind of like if somebody called you and I podcasters. We would be like, we don't do a podcast, we do a radio show.
Right. What's wrong with you? Okay, you ready for number 1?
I sure am. I want to hear the chicks ask for your
big
climax.
Finish, Brad's number.
John, you talked over part of it, so here, should I play it again so people can?
Yeah, and remember, I can't hear anything.
Okay,
so I can never hear what you play, so I'll be quiet and then you play that song again.
That's what she said.
And now, big finish, Brad's number.
Yes, my number one, my number one, my number one. Okay, interesting interview with Howard Schultz. Does that name ring a bell?
Yeah, it does.
Okay. Tell everybody who Howard Schultz is.
He was from the Washington Post, right?
No, not that. Howard Schultz, this is the guy behind Starbucks.
Oh, okay. There we go. Name association. Okay, what about him?
Okay, here's an interesting question. Was he the founder of Starbucks?
Based on your leading question, I'd say the answer is no.
Yes. Same thing with like Ray Kroc. Was Ray Kroc the founder of McDonald's?
Right, he didn't, but he just, you're saying that Howard Schultz brought it to prominence then?
Well, Howard Schultz bought it when it was in its infancy, okay?
Okay, that's great.
This is the story that gets interesting, and I find this fascinating. He gave this interview, and he told the story of how he was trying to buy Starbucks, and the current owners of Starbucks at the time was a small coffee place in Seattle. They wanted $3.8 million for the deal. So he didn't have $3.8 million. So he started calling investor friends of his and essentially saying, hey, this is going to be a big deal. I'll let you in the ground floor. And if he would have called John, John would have said, well, I don't have any statistics on it. There's no P&L. There's no numbers, so I'm not doing it. So John would
Yeah, I'd say, hey, you're a hobo with a map that's got a circled circle on it. No, I'm not going to give you money. Go ahead.
And John would be a multimillionaire right now if you got on the ground floor. Okay, so as the story goes, Howard Schultz tells the story that he's making these calls to investor friends. And when he comes up with the $3.8 million, he calls back the company head that owns the company, owns Starbucks at the time, and says, I got the money. And the guy says, we got a problem. I got somebody else that's got $3.9 million. And he says, who's that? Well, I can't tell you. He finds out that one of the guys that he talked to about investing with him sidestepped him and went directly to the owners of Starbucks and said, I'll give you $3.9 million. So Howard Schultz gets referred to Bill Gates Sr. Do you know who Bill Gates Jr. is?
No, who's that?
He's the guy that you're using your software right now.
Okay, well, who is senior? I know who Bill Gates is, Brad, but I don't know the difference between senior and junior.
Bill Gates Sr. is Bill Gates' father.
Okay.
Bill Gates Sr. is a very high-profile, powerful attorney in Seattle. So Howard Schultz goes to Bill Gates Sr. and tells him the story. Because somebody said, you need to go to talk to Bill Gates, not junior, but senior. You need to talk to Bill Gates. Bill Gates can help you. So Howard Schultz tells the story that he goes and tells the story to Bill Gates Sr., and Bill Gates is in his office in some downtown in Seattle, says, follow me, gets up at the office, walks over to the elevator, goes down the elevator, walks a couple blocks, ends up at this guy's office, the guy who one-upped him by $3.9 million. They sort of, as Howard Schultz tells the story, they burst into the office. Bill Gates Sr. gets into this guy's office, gets into his face and says, essentially, dude, don't do this. Rescind your offer. You're being a jerkazoid, probably some other choice words. And if you know what's good for you, you will rescind your offer and let Mr. Schultz buy Starbucks. Walked out of the office. Howard Schultz is stunned. He's going like, holy cow, I don't believe what I just saw. The next day, the guy from the company, the Starbucks owner, calls up Howard Schultz and says, okay, the other offer was withdrawn. You're it.
Wow, that's amazing.
So, but see, the interesting part of this.
Now, hold on, Brad. Is this story timely, or like what's the hook behind the story?
But see, the thing for me that's interesting about this is that sometimes very prominent people get shadowed by their kids, okay? Bill Gates Sr. was a big, important dude in Seattle, okay? And if you read his bio, he was, president of this, and he was that, and he was a high-powered attorney, and he did all this kind of community stuff and stuff like that. Nobody knows who he is other than Bill Gates' father. And the interesting part of it is, we're in full circle, that he died a couple years ago at the age of 94 of Alzheimer's, and Bill Gates Jr., a.k.a. the guy we know that, and interestingly, did not found Microsoft either. He bought the software. He bought DOS from another guy, I think for $75,000. Was that a buy or what? But Bill Gates Jr., one of the things he's devoted a lot of his time to is curing Alzheimer's. And he goes around the country and personally visits universities and research labs that are doing research on this. And apparently, Indiana University is one of the foremost. And he goes there and he personally meets with the doctors, shakes their hands, and essentially says, I owe it to my father to cure this horrible disease. So maybe that's the tie I'm throwing in with that,
Well, that's very nice. That's a good feel-good story, Brad.
So, but the interesting part of it to me is, and I'm so fascinated by business biographies. I've always fascinated because, you see these people who are super successful. Oh, that Howard Schultz guy, man, he's a billionaire. And at one point in time, he was a guy. Now, obviously, we're talking. Most people going, well, he's trying to scrounge together $3.8 million. I told the story that the guy that in the radio business used to work here in St. Louis. When I called him up trying to buy KFNS, he's sitting on $21 million that he won't spend because he's got a private equity fund, but he doesn't want to buy just one station. He wants to buy bunches of stations. But Tom Langmyer is the guy's name. And I nothing against Tom Langmyer. It's a good guy. But, he's always on. See, I told you the story. This is how I got in the fight with J.C. Corcoran. He's always on there, posting these articles. A good radio station should be run like this. And I every once in a while I send back, Tom, take the money out of your personal equity fund. Buy some radio stations. Instead of telling us how to do it, dude. You know what I'm saying?
I do. But, I would make the argument, Brad, that he's earned the right to sit on the sidelines and spend his time how he wants and tell people the way he thinks things should be, right?
John, he's retired. And you know what the number one cause of death in the United States is?
No, I've never heard you say this before, Brad. What is it?
Retirement. We have to take a break.
No way.
Yes.